Boba Fett is really cool. His first appearance in The Empire Strikes Back is a masterclass in precision, restraint, and mystique. He has only 4 lines of dialogue, and one of them is used to question Darth Vader.
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
At that point, the most lethal and terrifying force in the galaxy. From the jump, his silent protagonist vibe, great kit, and iconic helmet were seared into the brains of the audience. He's a classic gunslinger with sci-fi cool. He's a quick draw, available for hire, clearly the best at what he does, and impossible to impress or intimidate. And we know this because his armor is both highly customized and battle-tested. He has faced the baddest of the bad and won, but he doesn't have to tell us that. He says so little, but he's also not hiding. Boba Fett is really cool. But something that's been forgotten to time is the quirky development of this character. Film marketing in the 1980s was a very different beast to what it is today. Looking back, it's kind of a special miracle that he came off as such a badass for a whole generation of people who met him in The Empire Strikes Back. Let's take a look at the delightfully hokey ways that Lucasfilm announced this character.
During pre-production on The Empire Strikes Back, visual effects art director Joe Johnston and concept artist Ralph McQuarrie were asked to develop an elite stormtrooper concept that would appear en masse in the Star Wars sequel. An all-white prototype of what we now know as Boba Fett was developed for these super troopers. But the build was too expensive to get mass-produced across an entire legion. So, instead of scrapping the whole design, George Lucas said, instead of an army of super troopers, this is going to be a bounty hunter. He's sort of a bad guy, but he's not on the Empire side, and he's not on the Rebel side. He's a mercenary. He'll do anything for money, and his outfit, the way he looks, should reflect that. 1 minute, foiled by the props budget, and the next, resurrected by on-the-fly backstory spitballing, transitioning the set from fresh regulation white to something that would illustrate the battle-tested career as a gun for hire would send Johnston onto a series of layered repaintings, faux damage, and dyeing the fabric parts a medium gray. To the joy of us all, footage of a 1978 screen test and gear explanation for this proto-Fett exists. Featuring editor Dwayne Dunham as model and sound designer Ben Burt as presenter, this footage is solid gold.
Okay, we'd like to introduce Boba Fett, and here he is, a new character. This is a rangefinder. Is this what this is here? This tilts down here. This is a dart throwing device, rather deadly, and there's other mechanics and electronics. I have to turn around and get a shot of the jetpack.
Very cool, guys. Thanks for sharing.
After walking through the secret booby traps of Boba Fett's armor, the demo poncho was mocked up with a limp Star Wars beach towel. In the whiplash of glory and bummer, Fett came out ahead here, but the Clint Eastwood of space was humbled a little bit by the coconut-scented pool party prop. Later that same 1978 summer, George Lucas wanted to have a Star Wars presence in the small Northern California town where he lived, San Anselmo. You can see footage of this event with Darth Vader and the unknown Boba Fett, both wearing the actual filming costumes, strolling down the parade route and signing autographs. Dunham, once again being the only person on staff who fit into the suit, sweated his way through that walk as a franchise mascot. Even though the footage looks humble, all first-hand accounts say that Boba Fett defied the odds and came across as very, very rad. But November 17th, 1978 brought a blow that damaged more than just a few characters. The infamous Star Wars Holiday Special. While the headliners from the original movie celebrate Life Day, Boba Fett officially debuts in an animated tangent. It is over an hour into the series of fever dreams that are somehow both stunning and dull, none of which are considered canon. This animated story segment, though, is fine. Not nearly as weird as the rest of the presentation. Fett's main character trait is vaguely established by Darth Vader saying,
I see why they call you the best bounty hunter in the galaxy.
A few minutes later, though, the mercenary's plot fails, and his debut ends with Fett boosting away. We're gonna call this a net win for Boba Fett. It was technically his premiere. Vader got out the main messaging about this character, and he didn't suffer nearly as much as everyone else in the holiday special. While we all know how to find this TV special, it only aired once. In the merchandising whirlwind following the release of the first Star Wars movie, Kenner Toys went to town planning action figures. By 1979, the company had announced a promotion for customers to send in 4 proofs of purchase, and you get an action figure that can best be described as totally badass. It was Boba Fett, and the bounty hunter's jetpack would have a spring-powered firing rocket projectile included in the package. While American kids dutifully collected their cards and sent them in, the toy had to be changed, substantially. Over a few months, a series of overlapping events and safety reviews determined that a spring-loaded rocket mechanism was a choking hazard. Kenner would try different versions to solve this issue, but eventually sent out a figure with the rocket secured firmly in the jetpack. Tragically, kids only found out when they got their own toy in the mail and saw a note explaining the safety change, triggering a national epidemic of toy-related disappointment. To the unconsolable fans, the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy got a toy more like a rumpled, helmeted airplane pilot with a backpack, in an interesting manifestation of the Mandela effect. Some kids would later say that they had been sent the cool one. This is categorically untrue. All of the original kit-bashed L-slot and J-slot figures are accountable to Kenner employees, and none of them were distributed to the public. If you were told this as a child, you were lied to. Also, their dad does not work at Nintendo. This example here from Rowley's collection is an L-slot version, one of the 15 known graded examples. It's pretty cool. When The Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, Boba Fett had finally taken the crown. For the larger world, this was his first appearance. Wonderfully brooding, weaponized, aloof, and delightfully self-serving. He had survived budget cuts, beach towel accessorizing, humid county parades, psychedelic animated adventures, and toy neutering. It was glorious. So when Boba Fett dies abruptly in Return of the Jedi, fans just chose not to believe it. Even C-3PO's graphic description of,
"In his belly you will find a new definition of pain and suffering as you are slowly digested over 1,000 years."
We all just put our fingers in our ears and said, nah, 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 nah. Obviously, everyone else who went in there died, but not Boba Fett. After the original Star Wars trilogy, it was crystal clear that Boba Fett would not be gone forever. The prequels tie him into the literal DNA of the Empire, and the expanded universe novels always carried the torch. The Disney Plus Book of Boba Fett show is an example that, even when those moments wobbled, this bounty hunter never seemed to lose his prestige.
And that is not a given. Looking at Ewoks, and especially, but with a lot of kindness, at Jar Jar, instead Boba Fett is joined by Darth Maul as great examples of Star Wars characters killed off early in theatrical movies, only to be resurrected by the dark magic of fan adoration, stumbling their way into greatness and follow-on stories.